What is up, my ninjas? I'm Strydent, and welcome to my Q&A session. I'm really glad I'm getting the opportunity to do this. You know how long I've been on YouTube, and I've been watching others and partaking in others' Q&A sessions, and I never did one of my own, so, you know, this is kind of nice. Yeah, I just want to say thanks to all you guys for, you know, watching and participating and, you know, sharing in all these reviews and geeking out with me and all that, because it's fun, you know what I mean? I really like having such a laid-back atmosphere for us to just goof off and shoot the shit about action figures, you know? So, I don't know. It's pretty cool. So, without further ado, I'm not going to bullshit anymore. Not that I'm bullshitting, but, you know, I'm not going to really, waste any more time. I'm just going to get into it. So, let's see. Where will we start? Ryan Gillis. He asks, why do you call your viewers ninjas? Okay. I call my viewers ninjas because a lot of the YouTubers that I used to watch when I started had terms for their, you know, their viewers. One of my favorites was Sky John, and he called his viewers the bastards because, you know, he's kind of got a dirty mind, and, you know, obviously if you enjoy his humor, then that would kind of indicate that you have a dirty mind too. And I mean, he's dirty, so but he's funny as hell. So I was always thinking, what would I call my viewers? In all my martial arts classes, in school, everything, every time people knew I did martial arts, that's what they would call me, as a ninja. Well, he's secretly a ninja, you know, he practices in secret, but I caught him, blah, 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 you know what I mean? He's a ninja. So I don't know, I just thought it sounded, you know, nice, and it's a cool visual, you know what I mean? And, I don't know, it just worked, I don't know, it was just one of those things. I think I remember watching Rush Hour, the first Rush Hour, and there was the whole "What's up, my nigga" crap that him and Chris Tucker were going through, and I was like, why didn't he just say "What's up, my ninja"? Keep it simple, you know what I mean? Instead of going into that territory. So, I don't know, it just seems like one of those multi-purpose words that just, it's cool for the viewers because you get to be ninjas, and it's cool for me because I get to imagine my fan base is ninjas. So, I hope that's not too goofy. Sometimes I can be like that. Nohoon100, he asks, he's actually asked me a bunch of questions, but I'm going to do, you know, I'm not going to do all of them at once. I'm just going to answer, you know, this one, and then I'll get to the next one. What's your thoughts on the Supergirl pilot, the Flash season finale, and the spin-off shows? And what do you think Arrow could do to get back on track from becoming Batman? Okay. Supergirl was eh. It was eh. The thing about Supergirl is that it clearly is not written for the boys. Now I say this, it's not written for the typical boys, you know what I mean? Us, the guys, the men. It's more of a kind of softened up version of what she actually goes through, or kind of like a softened up version of what they think she goes through. It felt very much like the canceled Wonder Woman pilot, where, you know, Wonder Woman is like sitting around with her doll, and she's got like a cat or a dog or something, and they're eating ice cream and they're watching TV, and she's like, get the fuck out of here. Wonder Woman would be at a gym surrounded by fighters because that's the kind of woman she is. She's not your girly girl, despite what all the women that read, I shouldn't say all the women who peek in at comics, despite what they want, that's not who she is. You know what I'm saying? She's at home with warriors, at home with tough people. So, you know, that should have never been. Supergirl. I think they should have based this off of the New 52 version of Supergirl, because she was really, really, like, even though she was angsty and kind of angry, she was tough, you know? She was, like, you could believe that she possibly was the strongest Kryptonian. or one day she'll get there. You know, the whole Red Lantern aspect. I mean, there were all these twists that they took her in that just were like, man, this is dope. Shit, I would have even taken them using the Earth 2 origin, you know, the Power Girl, Supergirl deal. I would have even taken that kind of a mashup of the two. Shit, I would have rather had a Power Girl show over Supergirl, but I mean, it wasn't horrible. It just, a lot of it, I mean, I'm seeing reviewers say stuff like, you know, trying to fight the criticism and say, oh no, it's nothing like the SNL video with the Black Widow movie. Yeah, it is. It's very much like that. I hear people talking about, oh, she's a woman, she's strong, blah blah blah. No, she's a girl. They're adamant about telling you that this is girl is powerful and strong and blah blah blah. And it's just like, even in the comics, the girl power thing is not beating you over the head like that, and they're not trying to minimize her or marginalize her as a female character by putting all the female cliches in there and then reminding you, oh look, she's a woman. Look, she's smaller than the men, but she can hang out with the men. You know, like, it just, I don't know. So anyway, yeah, I wasn't really impressed. It was better than I expected, but still not impressive. Flash season finale was amazing. The Flash won me over after, and I actually have a video that I'm about to upload, in which I'm kind of singing my praises of the Flash. After that episode, I think it was called Things Change. I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong because I usually don't pay attention to the titles. You know, like, I don't remember the titles after I've watched it unless it really fucking blew me away, like, on another level. But like, the episode in which you find out that what was it? It was the one where the Weather Wizard, I think he was the second Weather Wizard, right? He kidnapped Joe, and he created the giant tsunami, and, you know, Flash had to run super fast to create that wall of air to kind of diffuse the strength of the tsunami. And then he ended up going back to the day before, so everything that happened with him and Iris and all that stuff, it was kind of undone. When that episode happened, I was like, holy shit. And then even further so, when they solidified it with the revelation of Eobard Thawne killing the real Dr. Wells and then sucking his life force out of his body with that weird device and then putting all that into himself and literally shape-shifting into Harrison Wells, I was like, holy shit, they just created another timeline that's parallel to or it's like in between the comics and the original couple episodes of the show. So now it's like the biggest FU to DC. You're like, hey, we can, or to Warner, I'm sorry, we can now respect the comics, and then we can also have, you know, we can pick and choose what we want to happen that mirrors what's in the comics, and we can also do the things that kind of make the TV audience, you know, we can do the things that will get the TV audience and, you know, surprise the TV audience. So it was like they literally created their own timeline just for the show. And then top it off within the finale, seeing Jay Garrick's helmet and just, oh, man. And then him disappearing, kind of like a throwback to what was it called? Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's like they totally did the Flash justice. You know, I'm kind of a lightweight Flash fan because I got into the Flash because of my little brother. Growing up, that was my brother's favorite hero, and he was all about the Flash. So we used to watch the 90s show, and when it ended, he wanted to know more, so it forced me to collect Flash comics. And then we got into the Flash, and we started learning more about him, and you know, it was kind of cool. That's how I learned about Wally West, and he became my favorite of the bunch, next to Jay Garrick. I love Jay Garrick. Dude is cool. So yeah, the finale was awesome. I mean, it's what we've been wanting. You know, it's what I was wanting since when I first heard that they were going to have a Green Arrow TV show. Green Arrow is my second favorite. Like, he's in my top 3. So other than things related to Batman, there always was Green Arrow, because everything that's dark in the Batman universe, it's kind of light on the Green Arrow side. You know what I mean? It's a little bit more lighthearted. Especially Ollie. He makes all the jokes. He doesn't take shit seriously. He can actually get his ass whooped. And then his wife, girlfriend, depending on what time period, Black Canary has to show up and whoop the asses of the things that he can't fight, or that he can't beat. And I like that. It's kind of like a Jackie Chan to your Bruce Lee kind of deal. Jackie Chan's a little bit more goofy, and he's not always 100% the badass that can whoop everyone's ass. Sometimes he gets his ass whooped, So that was one of those things, So yeah, I love The Flash, man. They're doing everything right. And they're showing all the naysayers who have been trained by, the modern media. They're doing a good job showing them that all the comics saying that you can't make something comic accurate, or you can't respect the source material and still make the show believable to your TV audience or your movie audience. They're smashing that shit so people can see that, yes, you can. As far as the spin-off show just looks like more fun. I'm not a fan of the Atom, because I know he was supposed to be Blue Beetle, and a lot of his shtick is Ted Kord. If you've read DC Comics for a long time, and you read Justice League International, and if you've read Blue Beetle's another one of my favorites. I like both Ted Kord and Jaime Reyes. And if you've read, a lot of books that happen to have the Blue Beetle in it, then that quirky billionaire personality, that's Ted Kord, So, yeah, I don't like the suit. The suit is still like a bootleg Exo Man-O-War. I'm glad they finally made him shrink, though. And we knew it was coming when he was talking about dwarf star crystals. I'm like, finally! So, yeah. Legends of Tomorrow looks pretty good. They brought back Katie Lotz. I'm happy. I'll watch just for her. That's all I need on that show. And I will watch. Hawkgirl's in there. That's another one. I'll watch just for the two of them. And I'm pretty sure Arrow and Flash will guest star on there from time to time. But yeah, I like what I'm seeing. It seems like they're taking more chances now, and that's awesome. Now, as for Arrow sucks. The only thing they could do to get back on track is to rename the show Green Arrow, or within the show Arrow, brighten up the costume just a little bit, change Ollie's disposition, make him a little bit more cocky and wisecracking and less Batman. Make him mess up but recover in the middle of a battle. You know what I'm saying? Like when I say mess up, I mean like have him, crack a joke and underestimate the person he's fighting, get knocked down, and then he gets serious and gets back on track in battle, and then, he still remains a little bit more happy-go-lucky, I guess is the best way to or like kind of just cocky, I guess. Kind of get rid of this Batman persona, because that shit is stupid and it's not cool, and you have to be just fucking out of your mind not to see that he's Batman light. Like, they wanted to do Batman and they can't, so they're trying to make Oliver into Batman. I mean, you just can't deny it. And it's sickening, because it's made all these characters and all their plots kind of suck. And then it's funny, too, because when you see the other characters progress, it feels like Ollie is still left in the dirt, because he's exactly the way he's been from the first season to now. He's actually worse. So the fact that the end of this last season was a little bit happier, because he said he was happy, he was smiling, he was a lot more light. I hope that they lighten up the series more, and I don't mean he has to be cracking jokes to the point that the Flash does, but even the Flash got a little bit darker towards the end of the last season. And when I say dark, I just mean, there's real high stakes going on, and he wasn't able to be as, wisecracky and jokey with what was going on. So, he's kind of more determined. I want to see Ollie act more like the Ollie that I know from the Green Arrow books I've been reading. Because even in some of the most fucked up situations that he's been in, he was the voice of reason, and he's the one making light of the situation so that everybody else doesn't get depressed. That's Oliver. That's the whole point of having this character. That whole run with him and Green Lantern, that was the point. He was always the opposing argument for just the regular Joe. Whereas everybody else kind of had this like extremely staunch moral code or this stance that they just wouldn't come down off of. He was like, you know, maybe in this situation we can do that. We can do it sometimes, but sometimes the situation calls for something else, you know? That's Ollie. He's looking out for us. The Oliver in the TV show, he's still a rich guy with his own agenda, and that's not who he needs to be. So I don't know. I kind of feel like Arrow's a lost cause. I was done. I only watched because I had a feeling people actually, I think Nohoon 100 had asked me about Arrow a couple weeks ago in another video, and I was like, let me watch it and just see what happens. So while I was working on some freelance, I checked it out. So yeah, I hope that answers. That was my long-winded ass answer to that, your first of your bunch of questions. Hajni16, please share your all-time 5 fighting game characters from fighting games. Oh, I'm sorry, fighting games and characters from fighting games. All right. This one I had to think for a while because I'm thinking of games that I had the most fun with. So fighting games, I'll say Third Strike and Third Strike is my number one. I've had the most fun with Third Strike. Of all the fighting games I've played, that game, it was difficult at first, but I had played so much of Street Fighter 3 and Double Impact that by the time Third Strike came, it was just like it was like freaking I don't know, man. It was like drinking your favorite liquor. You know what I'm saying? Like if you like Baileys or something like that, you know, the first time you drink it, it's kind of like and it's got a weird kind of taste to it, but then you get used to it. Or the first time you drink rum, it's like really hard and you're just like, and it burns a lot, you know. Then the second time, or you know, the subsequent times you drink it, it's a little bit more, you know, I don't know, you just taste the flavor, and then finally you get into this groove where it's like, you totally know what to expect. Your body is used to it, and it's not as jarring and shocking, you know, it's just smooth, especially if it's good. We drink this Puerto Rican rum. And it's so good. It's between Jamaica and Puerto Rico. We get those. But anyway, that's the way it felt. It was like jumping right back into like your most comfortable pair of pants, you know, like jeans or something. You know, when you first wear them, they're kind of hard. Then you break them in a little bit, you know, and then you can move around. And then by the time it's been a few years and you've had it for a while, they're your favorite pair. You just put them on and you're good. So there's that. Then there's Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection. I had a lot of fun with Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection because online, there were problems online, and a lot of people admitted that there were problems. So I didn't play as much, but I got to play a lot of people locally. And that's more my speed. I like that. I prefer the local thing. I mean, I grew up playing in arcades and stuff, so that's the way it is. But it's a tie, I'll say, between Tekken 5 and Bloody Roar 3. It's extremely underrated. Most people don't mention it. And if you get into that game, it's deep. It's a deep game. It's not as deep as like Virtua Fighter, or I won't even say Virtua Fighter. It's not as deep as Tekken, but it's deep. It's close, you know. There's so many ways. It's so fast-paced. The voice acting's horrible, but I mean, it's still, once you get over the voice acting, the combat is just so damn good. It's so satisfying, you know? So number 2 is a tie between Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection and Bloody Roar 3. Number 3 would be a tie between X-Men vs. Street Fighter and SNK vs. Capcom 2. Those are two 2D fighters that I played so much. I mean, I could pick any character in X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and I can go all the way with them. I know every little, tiny little thing, frames, tricks to get the moves to come out faster, you know, combos, you know, infinites. I know the whole 9. I swear, that was the game that kind of sent me off into the direction of like a serious tournament fighter. And then by the time SNK versus Capcom 2 came around, I was just like, I was already winning tournaments and stuff like that. I was pretty serious about this stuff. So, you know, that game, it was nice to see the SNK characters, and they weren't weaker, and they weren't like overpowered to make up for the fact that some other characters were insanely weak. You know what I'm saying? Like in the first one, there was a weird balance. Some of the characters, no matter what you chose, they still kind of sucked on the SNK side. But, you know, most of the Capcom characters stayed strong. So it was nice to see them fix the balance issues in part 2. And it just was a fun game, man. Even the little quotes, the back and forth, you know, conversations they have when you pick rivals and stuff, they're interesting. There were multiples of them. I don't know. I just love that game, you know. So that's number 3. Number 4 is Soul Edge. I fucking love Soul Edge. Matter of fact, I should just say it's another tie. Soul Edge and Soul Calibur. I love them equally. I'm a Taki player, and she got so much better by the time Soul Calibur came around. People hated me for playing as her. But I love those 2 games because Soul Edge, the PlayStation version, showed you what a release should be, a home release of an arcade game with all the different options, the Edge Master mode, the 3 different soundtrack modes, and then it just was a fun game, you know, losing your weapon possibly, you know, you couldn't overdo the whole critical edge move, and if they blocked it enough times, it would weaken your blade, and then you could knock the blade out of their hands, and then you had to kind of, you know, sorrily fight back with these like really bad like basic karate moves and stuff. But I loved it because, you know, you really had to plan your attacks, you really had to play a little bit more like real sword play. There was the whole clash thing where if 2 moves of the same strength hit and you were kind of far away, you could deflect the hit with your hit. Or if you did the same strength and it was the same, like, you know, 2 vertical strikes or 2 horizontal strikes, you would clash and, you know, push against each other, and you had to beat the controller up, kind of like in Samurai Showdown. And then, you know, if you did it fast enough, you could knock them down and knock their sword out of their hands. I don't know. It was a very, very epic game. And Soul Calibur just refined a lot of things. Even though we lost the clash and the critical edge and stuff, it just was nice to see smooth combat. The graphics in that game were insane. The combat was really well done because they gave you some of those moves, you know, the deflects and the parries and the blah, 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 but they made them moves that were specific to each of the characters. So even though you had the way that everyone can do it, characters like Huang and Shanghua and Killick, they all had ways of parrying. I mean, the other people did too, but I'm just throwing out 3 of them. They had ways of deflecting and parrying and blah, blah, blah that were stylized, that just, if you knew what you were doing, you would floss. Me and my roommates at the time, because we played it a lot in college, we always tried to have the fanciest fights, so we would always learn all the most complex combinations and try to do it. And then instead of just, like nowadays, the way people play fighting games is they try to completely shut down the other person, so the other person doesn't really get to play. We played it more like a chess game or like a breaking battle. You know what I mean? Like, you want to not only wow the audience with what you do, you want to, you know, outdo the opponent. You don't want it to just be boring and straightforward. So yeah, we had a lot of fun with that game. So yeah, those 2, that's my number 4. Number 5 is the King of Fighters 98. 2000, 2001, 2003, and the 98 version I'm talking about is the Ultimate Match, or I think that's what it's called. I love that version of the game. I was so happy when that shit came out because my soldiers were back and they were kind of beefed up and kind of a combination of what they would become in the future and what they were in the past. So yeah, I dug that a lot. Yeah, King of Fighters is one of my favorite games out there. Because back in the day, for me, it was Street Fighter and King of Fighters. You know, I fell out of love with Mortal Kombat after Mortal Kombat 3, and then, you know, Ultimate, and then the trilogy. And then, you know, by the time 4 and all the other ones came out, I was done with Mortal Kombat. So it became all King of Fighters. The Samurai Showdown games are okay, but King of Fighters, man, some of those animations, the designs of the characters are so smooth. Some of these characters just look so cool. Granted, when Falcon came on, a lot of the characters looked really fruity. So like the 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, you know, the 2000s were where Falcon started taking characters in that kind of fruity direction. I still dug that game. So yeah, so those are the games. My favorite characters, top 5. Number 5 is Terry Bogard. He's just cool. He's like classic cool, and he hasn't really changed that much since the first Fatal Fury. And he's like literally, he's SNK's Ryu. I mean, you could say it's between him and Haomaru, but I prefer Terry Bogard. I mean, he walks around with a big old bag. He travels the world challenging people, and he's just a good guy. I love it. He doesn't even have like evil Terry Bogard, that bullshit. No, he's just the freaking lone wolf. He's dope. That's just how he is. I love that character. Number 4 is Nash from the first Street Fighter Alpha. Nash was cool because we didn't expect him to be like that. I kind of expected the Nash from Street Fighter 2V. I thought somehow that was what was going to show up in Alpha. And then when I saw the guy in Alpha and he was all flashy and shit, and like, you know, everything that Guile did that was 1 hit, his was 2 or 4 or something else. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, damn, this guy's actually pretty damn cool. And he's the guy who kind of got Guile in the direction he's going. That's dope. I like him. So, and he just was a cool looking character. Number, what is that? 5, 4, 3. Kazuya Mishima. Pretty much you take Akira from Virtua Fighter or Ryu or, you know, Haomaru, any of those Japanese characters that are the hero, and you turn them fucking sadistic and evil and make them smirk after they do jacked up stuff to their own family members. And he's comical, but he's just so evil that you can't not like him to some degree. You know, he kind of, at one point in time, that was taking the genre and flipping it on its head. And, you know, I love the character for that. Number 2 is Iori Yagami. Another one of those crazy ass characters that just, he was mad powerful. His style was different and weird. And I don't know, he just really stands out amongst all the other video game characters out there, especially being that for a 2D sprite, he had more personality than a lot of the 3D characters out there. My number 1 favorite character, though, is, man, it's kind of hard, but it's between Ryu and Law. I love Ryu for the fact that they kept the character so simple, but he's become extremely cliche. You know, he straight up just wants to be the best, so he just fights because that's his life. Then there's Law. Law has become comic relief. He's been comic relief for a long time, but his moves are so different, you know, like in the sense that if he's goofy like that, why is he so on point in battle? Like, he should be a hero character that doesn't have that goofy backstory and the goofy shit that happens to him. But, you know, it always makes you laugh, and he's been the best Bruce Lee character that we've had for a long time. Some people argue that Jan Lee is better. I hate Dead or Alive. Jan Lee has some moves, though, that I'll give him that I think they're pretty cool. But at this point, Law and his son, you know, Forrest, to me, they're the top. They're the best. I know they're simple characters to play as, so I'm just talking about them as characters in general. You know, you can't beat the whole Bruce Lee thing, and it's nice that they gave the respect with that character, and you know, even respect to his son. I just want them, you know, even though he's my favorite visually, I want them to make the story match the character, because that's not doing you know, him any justice. So I hope that's good. Hope that answers the question, Hajni. And Hajni's been around for a long time, ever since, I think the first time I came across Hajni 16 was when I did those video game music videos where I was talking about music and video games and fighting games in general and how it's kind of gotten really weird and generic. But yeah, man, I'm glad you've been sticking around. NoHoon100 asks another question. In the Batman versus Superman film, who do you think besides Lex will be the villain? I know that Lex is the brains and the muscle is Doomsday. And I think they're going to have a different take on Doomsday as far as origin. But he'll still be this big, ridiculously powerful thing that you know, the two Batman and Superman will have to fight. So yeah, there's that. And I'm actually anxious to see how that plays out, because Doomsday on screen, this will be kind of setting the stage for the type of DC superhero films that I want to see. Dumbass Reviewer asks, Dar, I haven't seen you in a while. Will you do another superhero film attack? Yes, I will. I have a couple on the way. Can you review the remaining X-Men films, such as X2, 3, and X-Men Origins? I love when you have the chance. I love hearing your thoughts on these films. Yeah, I think what we are going to do is we're all going to get together and just have like a discussion about them, because the X-Men movies make me really angry, because they're an example of studios not getting it, and they're an example of a lot of fans not knowing the X-Men and then turning around and saying that these are good films and giving them props. Like all the people who say that X-Men started off Marvel films. No, Blade started off the Marvel films. And they're like, no, it was X-Men. There's so many people who ignore Blade. Blade was a better film than the X-Men films. Plain and simple. But people ignore that film. So, they give X-Men a lot more props than they deserve. They give Bryan Singer too much props, He didn't really have as much to do with the things that you like in the film, because all he did was direct. He didn't write those films. But anyway, yeah, we might go over them. Thoughts on the new Suicide Squad film so far? I think that what I've seen, I don't have a problem with. It looks like they're trying to marry the whole Arkham universe aesthetic with some of the darker comic books, the aesthetic that's been seen in some of the darker, more modern comics. And, it looks better than the kind of shit that we were getting from Nolan. Nolan's stuff didn't feel like a comic book, with the exception of a guy in a bat suit, Like, that Joker could have been a whole different character, because he really didn't resemble the Joker. So, like, seeing characters that resemble their comic book counterparts, that actually is good. Despite what people keep saying, bitching about Harley and bitching about... Like, the Joker, the tattoos look stupid, but the rest of him, he looks fine. The replaced teeth, it makes sense. Batman beats his ass. He beats the brakes off the Joker on a regular basis. So for him to have replaced teeth, that makes sense. They fought a lot, I hope there's a really good explanation for the tats, though, because those tats are really stupid, and they're not, like, what adult needs to write what they do in real life? What adult that you're supposed to kind of believe is, seriously whatever he is, would put what they do on their body? I am damaged, so he puts damaged on his head. Ha 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 ha, smiley face, all over his body. It's like, if it's a joke between him and Harley, and they do that kind of shit after they, each time they commit they get off a joke, quote unquote, and they commit a big crime or a big heist or whatever, or they kill a bunch of people, if they go home and they drunkenly tat stuff on each other, that would be cool, and then it would make sense, and it would actually kind of explain why he's doing what he's doing. Now, if they're not going to do something like that, and it's just there for show, so that you believe he's darker and edgy, and fuck that, it's just stupid. But I think, even though that's such a small detail, I think in general, more people need to wait and see what's going to happen, because it looks a lot better than the DC stuff that we had been getting, and it looks a lot better than what we all thought it was going to look like, realistically. I mean, honestly, I thought all this shit was going to be a train wreck, and I'm kind of still waiting to see what happens, because I have a feeling that it's not going to go the way we think it's going to go. But, only time will tell. Number 4, what would be your take on G.I. Joe 3 if you were to direct or write it? I would start back at the beginning. Since people love prequels and shit, I would do a real American hero movie that takes place in the 80s and show the forming of the early 80s, and show the forming of the G.I. Joe team. And I would redo the whole first mission with Dr. Burkhart and, Cobra Island and all that stuff, and show off and set the tone for what G.I. Joe should be. Because I think, they don't get it. I think they should have started with the old stuff and then work their way up, and then do like a modern take on Joe team. Have all the code names stay, and that's the constant, and have certain characters just age and get older and keep their code names and be in the field, and kind of transition to other roles in the movies as you replace characters over the the decades, and go into the future with like a kind of like what they've been doing with Call of Duty visually. Do that, go from A Real American Hero to Pursuit of Cobra. When you look at the toys, you see this really, really vast, like this big change between, there's a gap. I mean, not a gap, but a huge evolution between what the characters look like from A Real American Hero to, classic A Real American Hero to Pursuit of Cobra. And it would be dope to see that, and then they do one more or do more films that are like set in the future, a little bit farther, and so we could have newer and different enemies, you know what I'm saying, and better tech, and different versions, of certain characters, But yeah, that's what I would do. What the fifth and final question is: what franchise, new or old, do you believe should get a live-action film that hasn't got one yet? Oh man, I think they should make films of the less successful 80s franchises, shit like Inhumanoids. Inhumanoids was a dope cartoon because it took chances, but just imagine if they redesigned the costumes and make them more in line with the Accelerator suits from G.I. Joe, or even Iron Man suits, something like that, and then make them fight all the demonic shit that's in the Earth's core and all that stuff, and fighting shit like Decompose. Could you imagine that? I mean, if you don't know what Inhumanoids is, look it up, but shit like that needs the modern treatment, not the more successful stuff, because we already know what that stuff is. It stood the test of time. I don't see the point in possibly fucking up something that is so well done and so etched in our memories, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, Inhumanoids would be at the top of my list, but there's a ton of things they could do. Brave Star, it could be like fucking Firefly. I would have said Gem if they weren't already doing Gem, but Gem could have had the same kind of vibe that Scott Pilgrim has. Do GoBots, and then do what you did with Transformers with the GoBots, and it would be fine, because the GoBots were shit back in the day. If the Transformers aesthetic was GoBots, there wouldn't be much to complain about, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, there's tons, but yeah, Inhumanoids would be at the top of my list. So thanks, Dar. Scabcat242. What is up, sir? He's been with me for a long ass time too. He migrated over here from the Joe community. What's your favorite all-time movie? Big Trouble in Little China. That's my favorite movie of all time, period. I've never seen another movie like it. I don't think we will. I heard recently they're gonna either remake or do a sequel or something like that. They should just leave it alone. What do you think the average price for an action figure should be? $10 to $15. And sometimes, more like 10. If it's the stuff you buy in a comic book store, then yeah, $20 is fine. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mind paying $21.99 or $24.99 for my DC collectibles figures, because I'm getting, all that with my purchase. But when you start paying like the weird aftermarket prices, and when an action figure is up in the 30s and it's like 6 or 7 inches tall, it's like, and it's not a Japanese figure where the articulation is all figured out. Like my comic book store for some reason is selling the Marvel Select Carnage for $34.99. It's a good looking sculpt, but it's not engineered to the point that I would actually pay over $20 for it. You know what I'm saying? When I pay over $20, I could crunch the figure into a ball and it would hold that shape. When I say crunch into a ball, I mean I could make him hold his knees against his chest. The double jointed knees work, the double jointed hips work. Everything works, so I could actually make this look believable, like he balled up and is very sad or something, and it works, or if I want them to fold their arms, actually fold their arms, I can do that with the majority of my figures. And I don't have many Marvel figures that can do that outside of Spider-Man. Maybe there's a couple Spider-Man figures, some of the girls. So yeah, I think 10 to 15, and then for regular retail shit, and then depending on the size, and then I think also, if you have figures like Rocket Raccoon, those smaller figures, you should have a different price for them versus all the other figures. Because I don't understand why I was paying $21.99 $19.99 for all the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then you get Rocket Raccoon, who's half a figure, and you're paying $21.99 for him, even though he comes with a bath piece. Doesn't matter. He should be less than the others, you know? Do you think the public will ever get tired of comic book movies? Hell yes, I do. It's getting to a point where they're next to the occasional horror movie and you know, all the girly films that have been coming out, like the dramas and I shouldn't say dramas, but the like rom-coms, the romantic comedies and shit. It's only comic book movies. They're the big sellers these days. And not everybody is taking the shit seriously, but they're finally all seeing from Marvel that they should take it seriously. But I think, what is this? We're on the 10th Marvel movie now. So I think now, it's been a long time. The 10th movie from Marvel Studios. There's others out there with the Marvel, you know, stamp on it that are Marvel Comics characters. So there's been a lot of them, you know, and I have a feeling that it's going to get to a point where people are just going to be like, fuck it, man, we don't want this anymore. You know, we're tired of this. It's just not going to hit the numbers that they once hit. I don't even think Avengers 2 hit the numbers that they were thinking it was going to hit. So yeah, I think it's going to definitely get to a point where people are tired of it. Slasher Con. Number 1, which heroes in your mind have the best rogues gallery? Batman, Spidey, and Flash. Is there any specific person who should play Virgil Hawkins / Static in a live-action Static movie? Or that I would choose, actually, to play Virgil or, you know, and Static in a live-action film. Donald Glover, but he's kind of old. So I would really go with an unknown, because I think with superhero films, as long as they fit the role, people are going to go and see them because they're going to see said character, whatever the title character is. It's not always because you put a big name in there. Like, a lot of people have reservations for Ben Affleck as Batman, but more people are going to go see it because it's a Batman movie, or because Batman is in the movie, than people who want to see Ben Affleck. A lot of girls, I think, you know, that may like him. I don't think people like him like they used to, but in some cases, you know, a lot of fans of the actor, they're going to go, but I think it's more because of the character and what he's done to himself to become the character. And then I think in most superheroes, that's the case. We want to see the character. It's not so much about the actor. Number 3, do you believe there's any chance at all that Hasbro and Paramount could salvage the Transformers movies, or are they beyond saving? Yeah, I think they're beyond saving, unless they were to scrap everything, like this next movie that's coming out, or this next universe of movies that they're making. If they completely overhaul everything and start following Simon Furman's work, like, I'm a pretty decent Transformers fan. I'm not like Agent O. Agent O is a fucking Transformers encyclopedia. This motherfucker, he's the freaking the walking omnibus of information, the lexicon of Transformers everything. I just know from a lot of comics, the TV series, I have the whole series, and I have a bunch of figures, and growing up I read the comics, you know, so, and I didn't read them 100% consistently like my whole entire childhood, but I read them for, you know, many years, you know, about 10 years or so. So there's a lot of stuff. I think I stopped right when IDW picked up Transformers, and then I started reading those here and there because of Agent O. If they follow Simon Furman's work, they could pick any era and then just follow Simon Furman's work, they could save Transformers, but we all know they're not going to do that. So finished Earth 2 100%. I started skipping around. I read up to, there was like an annual, you know, a bunch of books, and then I started reading the uh, World's End, I think is what it's called, where freaking spoiler alert, Thomas Wayne blows himself up and kills a bunch of the Bat Rogues with him. Um, I read that stuff, you know. I read a couple of those final issues, and I was kind of like, okay. I mean, it didn't disappoint. It was pretty consistent. I'm going to go back though and buy the stuff that I didn't buy, you know, up to that point, because I really do like that series. You know, I like everything they did. I like the harder take on everything, and it worked for me. Um, ODC, that's me. What's up, homie? Um, Here's a couple. Can I borrow $5? Just kidding. Who's your top 5 favorite wrestlers? Who are your top 5 favorite Bat family members? And if you were a Batman villain, who would you be and why? My top 5 favorite wrestlers: Junkyard Dog, uh, Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart, um, Undertaker, and the Ultimate Warrior. um, my favorite Bat family members: Tim Drake, Robin, um, 2 Batgirls. I love Barbara Gordon, but I really love freaking what's her name? Cassandra Cain. She was my favorite Batgirl. Um, then I like Nightwing. I think Nightwing is really dope, and of course Batman. I mean, you know, Batman is the shit. I mean, and if we're not talking about Batman, then I don't know. I would say someone like Azrael, because I think like the current Azrael, because I think they did a good job. Or maybe not the current, the one that's in the Arkham games, because I haven't read an Azrael comic since Sword of Azrael, back when during the Battle for the Cowl. So yeah, the Black Azrael that's in the Arkham games, I like that character because instead of them just making him completely batshit insane, they made him seem more like purposeful. Like there's a reason for him outside of just at one point in time the guy wearing the costume was, you know, a substitute Batman. Not this guy, but the previous Azrael was the, you know, the stand-in for bats. So yeah, I like Azrael a lot. If I was a Batman villain, who would I be and why? Let's see. It's hard. It's hard to think about this one. A Batman villain, who would I be and why? Possibly Wrath. Possibly. I was gonna say Catman, but Catman is not really a Batman villain. I guess he showed up in Batman first, but not necessarily a straight up Batman villain. I don't know. Maybe Bane, because I think Bane is one of those characters who there's way more. Nah, you know what? Forget Bane. You know, because that just sounds more bandwagony. Because Bane was, you know, in the Dark Knight movies. I would be the other person I would be Ra's al Ghul. Yeah, Ra's al Ghul, 100%. I'm a fighter. Um, like I've been doing martial arts almost my entire life. Um, the codes that some of these characters live by, especially Ray, she lives by some old codes, and to some degree, I do kind of live by an old code to some degree. You know, um, I'm heavy on the respect part, super heavy on the respect part, which is why in my comment section I try to force, you know, people to kind of be mindful about that stuff, because you know you never know who you're talking to, especially with the internet and whatnot. You know, yeah, everybody's all anonymous and shit, but some people are not really being anonymous. They're telling you this is who they are, and you might fuck with the wrong person and end up with problems. So you need to be respectful of people and mindful that you never know what could happen away from the computer. You know what I'm saying? Or in life in general. But Raish is formidable as heck. I mean, he's so damn formidable. Um, he's one of the only characters that like just he goes toe to toe with Batman all the time, and it's never an easy victory for Batman. You know. I would have said Deathstroke. Deathstroke is probably my favorite DC villain, but Deathstroke is not a Batman villain. He's a Teen Titans villain, so I can't go for Deathstroke. So yeah, I'll stick with Raish. So thanks, homie. James Strickland. Other than action figures, what toys or items are you interested in? Now, so I'm assuming this means because I mean, you said items, so I'm assuming you mean 100%. Like, do I collect Hot Wheels or do I collect, movies or books or something else like that? For the most part, I collect mostly action figures, and I have since I was a kid. But the thing is, when I was a kid, I couldn't. My parents were, we were a kind of like, we were a middle class family. You know, my parents didn't buy me a ton of toys and stuff, but they would get me figures. But a lot of times we couldn't find the ones that I wanted. So as I got older, I got more and more obsessed with tracking down shit that I wanted when I was a kid. Especially if it still holds up today. So yeah, I collect mostly figures, but I mean, I used to be pretty hardcore into action games and fighting games. So I guess you could say systems. I still have my Sega Genesis, my Sega CD, my 3DO, my Saturn, my Dreamcast, my PS1, my PS2, and then I have the PS3. Um, and I have games for all of those systems. So I guess games. I'm a big music person, so I have tons of CDs, but CDs are a little bit, out of date right now, so it's all MP3. So I've got like tons of music. I'm a huge music nerd. Um, I like almost everything with the exception of country and folk. I mean, there are certain songs in those genres that I dig, but overall, um, it's mostly, I like orchestral pieces. I like soundtracks. I like old school hip hop. I like down tempo stuff. Like trip hop, acid jazz type stuff. I like uh, Swedish orchestral metal. They call it black metal because it's like epic. It sounds like the stuff that would be in a soundtrack, but you've got guitars over top of it. And the more classically versed the the band is, then the better the arrangements are. It won't just be guitar heavy. They'll use all kinds of instruments and stuff. I like synth. I guess it's synth pop, like old school kind of retro synth pop, like fucking Power Glove and man, what is the other group called? Churches, um, Gilgamesh. I like those kind of guys. I like a lot of DJs from back in the day. Not hip hop DJs, but I just mean DJs in general, like DJ Kicks. I like Kid Koala. I don't know, man. I like a broad range of stuff, and I collect the music as well. I used to collect weapons for martial arts, mostly swords and staffs, because I'm pretty versed in swords and staffs. I have a couple knives. I mean, I'm not a huge knife person. I am versed in using the knife. I've learned some Kali and some, I know some Eskrima and Arness. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just, if something's cool and catches my eye, I'll, collect that. I, for a while, collected black belt magazines from like back when Bruce Lee was still alive. So I have a lot of old black belt magazines that had stuff from Bruce Lee and stuff right after he died, and a lot of my action heroes that were martial artists. I have books where they're teaching their techniques in those books, which is kind of cool. Whether or not people believe the techniques will work, that's up to people. But a lot of the stuff is pretty legit, and I like that. Um, so yeah, there's that, and yeah, I guess that's about all I collect. You know, I stick with mostly action figures. I'm a movie buff. I have a ton of movies, if that's something. So yeah, I collect a lot of martial arts films. So yeah, there's that. So yeah, I think that's the stuff I'm interested in. Um, oh, it says, what other toys or items are you interested in? Um, I'm not. I can't believe I misread that. I'm not so much into like other types of toys outside of action figures. I mean, my younger son, we collect Imaginext for him. I'm about to do some videos on that. I've shot the footage. I need to put them together. Um, I we collect vehicles and stuff for GI Joes, mostly like bikes and stuff. Um, we would collect. I collect Transformers. I'm not a huge Transformers person, but I have a pretty decent sized collection because I got the ones that I always wanted, and I got several versions of some of my favorites. Megatron is my favorite Transformer. We collect Legos. I'm like, who doesn't? You know, if you're a child of the 80s, you kind of are forced to collect your Legos. So, yeah, that's the stuff that I, for the most part, that's what I collect. That's what I get into. I think that's it. Let's see, what else do we got? Adele Leone asks, what is your favorite style of martial arts and when did you start practicing martial arts? That is an awesome question. So I started practicing when I was 5. It was, you know, the typical kind of answer to a hyperactive, not like hyperactive as in disorder, but, you know, super hyper kid with a temper. That was me. My parents were trying to figure out things to do to keep me kind of occupied and to help control and quell the whole temper thing. I was one of those kids where if you said your mama, I was gonna pummel you. Like that was the way it worked. And you know, you can't go around doing that. You can't let people set you off so easily. So my dad shopped me around seeing what we could do. I played some sports, we did some boxing, and then I saw Enter the Dragon with him. And he was like, I told him I want to do that. And he was like, well, I know someone who can actually, you know, get you started on that. So I trained with a friend of his, military person. Then we we moved to New Jersey, and I continued. You know, there was a Shim's Karate that wasn't too far from us. That, you know, after school, they had these simple classes, very short classes. They teach you the fundamentals of many different styles because they had practitioners of different styles coming in and teaching, and I got in on that. I kept doing that for a while, and then I found out that the Y had some serious classes that were more intensive, and I just ran and, I don't know, I ran away with it, man. I got super crazy into it, got my certification, the whole 9, literally from 5 until before I even left for college. It was like one of the things that was a constant next to maybe my art. But my favorite martial arts style would be Junfan kickboxing, which is the kind of the combat application of Jeet Kune Do. I mean, these days they refer to Jeet Kune Do as a combat style when it's really principles that you apply to your cross training in martial arts. But Junfan it's pretty much what Bruce Lee did. It was the combat applications of a lot of the philosophy, and it worked. A lot of it works, you know, the whole idea of cross-training based on your body type and all that, it worked because I'm tall and lanky, so I needed to do things that work for me, you know? Now, if we're not talking about me, personally, like what I do, my favorite style to watch is XMA, especially in film. Like Scott Adkins and those guys that they cross-train, but they put together a lot of like XMA stuff with other styles. I love seeing that, you know, in action. It's kind of like, I love capoeira as well. Capoeira is extremely underrated when it comes to martial arts films, and it's not some kind of bitch-ass martial art. You know what I mean? The guys that usually train in capoeira are large, they're usually tall, they're muscular, and they're powerful. So if you get kicked by one of these guys, it's gonna hurt and you're gonna go down. And not to mention that the head is the target. So it's like, they're going for headshots all the time, you know, and it's like kind of difficult to plot out where they're going to strike from. So, you know, I don't understand why on film they always make it look like, oh, he's breakdancing, it's so weak, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, capoeira and XMA. Shit, XMA has a lot of moves that they've stolen from capoeira. Same thing with moves they've stolen from wushu. So yeah, Junfan, capoeira, and XMA. Favorite things as far as martial arts go, favorite styles to see in action. Yeah, that's a good question. I hardly ever get to talk about that stuff, so thank you for asking. So guys, this brings our QA session to an end. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for actually watching and listening and, you know, being involved. I want to give a special thank you to all the new subscribers. There's been a bunch of you, a little bit more than I'll be able to like go through and, you know, name off in a video, especially after you've already listened to me talk for an hour and some odd minutes. But I thank you. You guys are appreciated. We will talk in the comments, I promise. I hope you guys enjoyed, you know, this Q&A thing. If you guys want to do another one, let me know. Just hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you like this, if this was cool, if there's more questions. You know, think of it as you guys picking the topic of a video. And I'll do my best to get back to you, and then definitely, you know, answer any questions. I usually, you know, I'm good about trying to answer people's questions. I like talking to you guys. That's why we're doing this. So anyway, this was fun. I'm really glad, and I feel fortunate to actually, you know, have the opportunity to do this and just talk for the sake of talking. And yeah, you guys are awesome. So thanks for watching. You guys have been great. Peace outside.